Hi, today we're going to learn about some basic features in Microsoft Excel. So I've opened Microsoft Excel. Microsoft Excel is a generally used spreadsheet. It's probably the most common spreadsheet used for organizing information. So the first thing I'm going to do is talk to you a little bit about a column and a row. So you see we have columns across the top of our screen, and columns are always indicated with letters. And then we have rows along the left-hand side of the screen, and rows are always indicated by numbers. When you click on an individual box on your sheet, that's called a cell. So for instance, this cell right here is cell A1, and you can see in the left-hand corner that it tells me what my cell number is. So A1, this cell right here would be cell C1. And this is C6 and so forth. So what I'm going to do is set up a very quick table here that contains several columns and several rows. So I'm putting in student first name, student last name, grade level, Gear Up New Mexico service, and date of participation. Okay, and you can see I can't see all of what I typed in, even though I know I typed it in. What I need to do is I need to make my columns bigger. So what I do is I click on the column and I bring my cursor over until I get this kind of line with two arrows in either direction. I click and I drag over until I can see all of my column heading. Okay, so I'm going to do that for all of my columns. And if you don't quite get it, just drag it over a little bit more. So now I can see all of my column headings. So I'm going to go ahead and start entering some data. I'm just going to put some students in here so that I actually have a database. So I'm going to do this on my own for a few minutes while you guys catch up. So at this point you can see I've gone ahead and entered some data into the spreadsheet just using the same process. You click on the individual cell, you start typing, and then you move to the next cell. So what I'd like to do now that I have an idea of who's participating, what I'd like to do is I'd like to be able to filter some of this data so that I can see only 12th grade students. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select all of the data that I input, and I'm going to go to the Data tab up at the top of the screen, and I'm going to click on Filter. Now you can see my data has not changed at all. That's because I haven't turned on any of those filters. Essentially what I've done is I've just activated the filters. So in order to turn those filters on, I click on the column that I want to filter by. And in my example, I only want to see 12th grade students. So I'm going to click on grade level, and then I'm going to click on the arrow next to grade level. When I click on that, it brings down a drop-down box. Right now, all grade levels are selected, including blanks, which is right here. So I only want to see 12th grade students, so I'm going to click on all of the other grade levels except for 12th grade to essentially turn those values off. So when I click OK, I should see only students who are in 12th grade. And as you can see, I see. Now I know that those other grade levels haven't been deleted. They're only kind of hiding from me. And I can kind of see that by looking to the left. Do you see that the row numbers no longer go in order? That's because some of those values or some of those rows are hiding because they don't meet the filter that I just told the computer that I wanted to see, which is 12th grade. Okay, so I'm going to turn that filter off. Now let's say, for instance, I only want to see students who participated in tutoring. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. The filter is still activated, but none of the filters are turned on. So in order to turn on the tutoring filter, I'm going to click on the column that matches the filter I want to see, which is Gear Up New Mexico Service. I'm going to click on the drop-down box, and I only want to see tutoring. So I'm going to turn off everything else except for tutoring. And I should be able to see all of the students who participated in tutoring services. So those are a couple of ways that you can use a filter to help you see only the information you want to see. There's one more feature, one more purpose that you can use a filter for. Let's say that you want to look at any fields that are empty. This will help you to clean up your data so that you don't have any empty fields. Every student should have a grade level, right? So if we essentially tell the filter that we only want to see students who have blank grade levels, that's going to tell us where we need to fill in some holes. So let's turn off this tutoring filter. Now we want to look at students who have blank grade levels. So we're going to go to the grade level column, click the drop-down box, and we're going to turn off everything except for blanks. Now I see that Jude Lennon and Kimberly Noble both have no grade levels listed. So if I knew their grade levels, I would go ahead and type in their grade levels. And so now I can see that those students, I don't have any. I can click the drop-down box. I can see that I don't have any students who have blank grade levels because the blank option that was here before is now gone. So that's a quick way to be able to do a quick check for completion. So, and that's also, again, that's how you use the filter. Now I'm done with the filter for the purpose of this tutorial, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. Okay, so the filter feature is completely turned off. Let's say, however, that I wanted to sort students by last name, okay? So what I would do is I would select all of the cells, all of the data, including the headings, and I would click on sort. Remember, sort is still in the data field. So click on data tab and then click on sort, and it's going to bring up a menu. So I want to sort by last name. So on the sort by, I'm going to select last name. And generally, when you sort by last name, you also want to sort anyone who has a first name in alphabetical order as well. So I'm telling the computer that I want to add another level, and then I'm going to select first name as an alternate, an additional sorting field. So now what's going to happen is that the computer is going to sort first by last name, and then it's going to sort by first name. Again, I added the first name sort as in case of any students who might have the same last name. I still want those students to be alphabetized, but they're going to be alphabetized by last name, which is the same, and then by first name. So let's go ahead and click OK. So now I can see that my students are sorted by last name, and then in the case of anyone who might have the same last name, those students are also sorted by first name. Okay, so that's an easy way to use the sort function. Let's say I decided I don't want to use the last name anymore. Let's say I want to sort by grade level. So what I do is I select all of the data, I select sort, and then I'm going to take off, I'm going to delete the ones that I had, and then I'm going to add grade level. So now you can see my students are sorted from 9th grade to 12th grade. Let's say that in addition to student first name, student last name, grade level, and Gear Up New Mexico service, I wanted to add a student ID. So I can't just go ahead, it doesn't really make sense to go ahead and just add ID after Gear Up New Mexico service. So what I want to do is I want to insert that column right here in front of the last name. So if I wanted to insert a column, I would click on the column that I want to insert the column in front of. So I would click on column A. From the Home tab, I would click on Insert Sheet Column. Okay, so now I have a column that I can use for student ID. Now it's not quite big enough, so I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and insert all of my student IDs. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to assign a random student ID, okay? And I want all of my student IDs to be in order by grade level. So I could go ahead and I could just type in all of the numbers in the first, in that cell there in front of the name. But there's actually a shortcut that Excel gives you, and that's called an autofill. So if I basically select the cells that I've typed in, and I put my cursor in the far right-hand corner, do you see how it goes from being a big fat crossbar to being a thin crossbar? What I do is I click on that corner and I drag down, and I can kind of see in the on the right here as it moves through that autofill. And when I let go, it does an automatic count. That's great. So I'd like to go back and I'd like to see what my spreadsheet would look like if I wasn't viewing, let's say I don't want to see what Gear Up service students have participated in. So I basically want to hide this column. So what I'm going to do, I don't want to delete Gear Up New Mexico service, but I want to just hide it. So what I would do is I would click on the column I want to hide. Remember, we're clicking on the letter. And then I would right click. And you can see down at the bottom there is a feature that says hide. So essentially what's going to happen is it's going to just not delete that column, but hide that column from view. And I can tell there's something hidden because if I look at the column letters, it jumps from D to F. So I know that there's a column in there hiding. Okay. Now let's say I decided I want to bring that column back. What I would do is I would click on the two columns that surround my hiding column, in this case column D and column F, and I'm going to select those two columns. So I do that by clicking on the first one and dragging my cursor over to the second one, and then I right click and I can see unhide down here at the very bottom of that menu. So that brings back that column that I hid. Let's say I have decided that I want the grade level to show up after the Gear Up New Mexico service. So what I want to do is I want to cut a column out and I want to paste it in another place. So I want to cut the grade level column out and I want to place it behind the Gear Up New Mexico column. So what I'm going to do, just like cutting something and pasting it in Microsoft Word, I'm going to select the values I want to cut. I'm going to right click and I'm going to select cut. Okay, now I know that the data has been cut because I can see these little dancing ants going around the cell. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to paste that column over behind Gear Up New Mexico service. So I'm going to select where I want that data. I'm going to right click it and I'm going to paste it. Okay, and as you can see, that data has moved from column D to column F. Now, I have an empty column hanging out over here, and I don't want that. In Excel, you really don't want empty columns or empty rows. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that column. Okay, so the way I do that is I select the column, I right-click it, and I click on Select Delete. Okay, and that gets rid of that empty column for us. Actually, let me go through one more process. Let's go through the process of saving a workbook in Excel. So just like in Microsoft Word, for saving an Excel file, you go to File, and you'll go to Save, You'll select your location and you will type the name for the file. So let's just call this file, I'm going to save it to my desktop, and I'm just going to call it Gear Up New Mexico. Okay. Now that file, I know that file is saved because up at the top of the screen I see the file name that I just created. All right, let's talk about one more thing that you can do in Excel. Let's say that I want when I print this, I want to be able to see the individual column lines and row lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell Excel that I want some borders here. So in order to do that, I'm going to select the data that I want borders for, and I'm going to come up to the Home tab, and I'm going to select All Borders. And that's going to automatically create borders so that when I go to print this particular spreadsheet, it shows up on the page with those borders. If I didn't add those borders, all I would see would be the data without the line. When you're working with a spreadsheet, it makes it a whole lot easier if you have those lines pre-printed on there. So that is all I have for you. There's plenty more features in Microsoft Excel, but these key features are going to help you as you work with Scribe and as a Gear Up New Mexico staff member. If you have any questions, don't hesitate